Guys, it's Miss Springer. We're going to go ahead and get started with class for today. Today is Wednesday, September 23rd, and today we're going to be talking about variables on both sides, multi-step equations, and combining like terms. All right, so for our do now today, we've got to get out our notebooks, our pencils, and complete the following problems. So I'm going to go ahead and start these. So this first one's actually just a two-step equation. Remember, any term involving the variable, so if I'm looking at my variable terms, this is a term that's involving the variable, and then these two are constant terms. So I need to move that -6 before I can even start getting rid of that 4, because my goal is to get x by itself. So my first step is I'm going to go ahead and look at this -6. I need to move it over to the right side. So I'm going to go ahead and add 6 to both sides. And I'm doing that because a negative and a positive are going to cancel because I'm trying to move it over to the right side. So I'm left with x divided by 4 equals -5 plus 6. If you put that in your calculators, remember to practice putting stuff in your calculators. You've got -5 plus 6, that should give us +1. And finally, this is our second step. We need to get x by itself. Well, right now it's x divided by 4, because this line right here represents division. So x divided by 4 equals 1. So to undo that division, I'm going to go ahead and multiply both sides by 4. Because multiplying and dividing by 4 is going to cancel. So I'm going to be left with x equals 1 times 4, which gives me 4. All right, this second problem, I've got x plus 5 equals 3x minus 1. So what I'm going to want to do is pull out my highlighter or your 2 markers. I'm going to highlight my variable terms, and then I'm going to highlight my constant terms. We've been practicing doing this all week, so just remember to identify constant and variable terms. Again, your variable terms are the terms with the x or the letter, whatever variable or letter they use to represent that unknown value. And then your constant terms are going to be your ones like 5, 2, -1, something like that, that don't have a variable. All right, once we get to this step, I want to go ahead and get rid of my smaller variable term. So if I'm looking at x and 3x, I need to think, okay, which one's smaller? So x is the same thing as 1x. So 1 is smaller than 3, so I'm going to go ahead and I want to move my x over here because that's a smaller variable value. So I'm going to go ahead, since this is a positive x, I'm going to go ahead and subtract x from both sides. Again, a positive and a negative are going to cancel. So I'm going to go ahead, bring down my 5 equals 3x minus x, and that is the same thing as 3 minus 1. So 3 minus 1 is going to give me 2. I'm going to bring down that x, and then I'm going to bring down my constant as well. Next, I'm going to get my highlighter back out. I'm going to highlight my variable terms in yellow, highlight my constant terms in green. Again, our goal is to get that variable by itself, but before we can get x by itself, I need to move all of my variables to one side and all of my constants to the other side. So right now, all of my variable terms are on the right side, so I need to get all of my constants on the left side. I can do that pretty easily, actually. I can go ahead and add 1 to both sides. So I'm moving that green or that constant term over to the left side. So again, a negative and a positive are going to cancel. So 5 plus 1 gives me 6 equals, I'm going to bring down my 2x. Finally, I'm at my last step, 6 equals 2x. I'm going to go ahead and divide both sides by 2. And I'm doing this because I know 2x is the same thing as 2 times x. So to undo multiplication, I'm going to go ahead and divide, which is using the opposite operation. So x equals 6 divided by 2, which gives us 3. All right, and this is just a little bit of two-step equation review and variables on both sides review. Next, I wanted to review with you guys combining like terms. So if you're taking notes in your notebook, go ahead and write down combining like terms. All right. This is where highlighting becomes super important. I know I emphasize it a little bit, but this is pretty important here because you're going to be combining lots of terms in a little bit in a few lessons. So I've got 3x and 4x. Those are my variable terms. So you're going to want to take one of your highlighters or one of your colors and highlight those variable terms. Next, I'm going to highlight my constant terms. And remember, if you've got a negative term, make sure you're including that minus or negative sign in that term. All right, next, I'm going to go ahead and again, we're talking about combining like terms. I'm going to combine these two types of terms. So I've got 3x and 4x. Those are the same type of term. What I mean by that is they're both variable terms. So I can combine, I can't combine variable terms with constant terms, but I can combine variables with variables. So I've got 3x plus 4x. So I can go ahead and combine those. 3 plus 4 I know is 7. And then, so I combined those two already. And then I've got 12 and I've got -8. Now I want to explain this really fast. When we think of combining, we're typically adding. So what you would do is you would do 12 plus -8. So that's technically what we're doing. However, if you enter 12 plus -8 in your calculator, you get +4. This is the same thing as doing 12 minus 8. So when you add a negative like that, you're really, all you're doing is just subtracting. So if you see a positive term and a negative term, when you combine them, you can just go ahead and subtract. All right, so again, 12 minus 8 gives me 4. And that's our answer for that one. All we're doing is, this is an expression, not an equation, and we've talked about that in a previous lesson, but the difference between an expression and an equation is an expression doesn't have an equal sign, and then an equation has an equal sign, and it's comparing two equal expressions. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and do the second one. So go ahead and pick up one of your highlighters, go ahead and start highlighting your variable terms, and then go ahead and start highlighting your constant terms in your other color. Once you do that, we can go ahead and start combining like terms. So again, I can't combine the y and the 9y and the -2. Can't combine those because they're two different types of terms. This is why the color coding is helpful, because I've identified all of my like terms. So 9y, 14y, and -3y. Those are all like terms, so I can go ahead and combine them. So 9y plus 14, so you can go ahead and actually just pick up your calculator. 9 plus 14 minus 3. And all I'm doing is 9 plus 14 minus 3. And so we've got 20y. So I have combined all of those. Next, we're going to go ahead and combine our constants. So -2 plus 20. In your calculator, you can go ahead and enter -2 plus 20. That's going to give me +18. And we are done with those two. Again, I just wanted to practice that skill really fast before we moved on to some more complex equations that involve this skill. All right, variables on both sides. Go ahead and watch me do this problem. You can write it down and follow along if you'd like. I'm going to go ahead and make it a little bit bigger for me. Okay, so if I was looking at this problem and it was on a quiz, I would go ahead and highlight my 16, my 9, and that's it. And those are my only constant terms. So your first thing you're going to want to do in a multi-step equation problem is identify those constant and variable terms. The second thing I'm going to want to do is identify my variable terms. Then I'm going to draw my line down the middle so I can remember to do my steps on either side of the equal sign. Now, I want you to look at the left side and the right side separately. So 16 and -2t. I want you to think, is there anything that I can simplify or combine on the left side of the equal sign? The answer is no, because we've got a constant and a variable term. So I'm just going to go ahead and bring those down, negative 2t. And the reason I'm bringing those down is because I notice on the right side there are terms that I can combine. So if I'm looking at that plus 9, there's no constants I can combine with on the right side, so I'm just going to bring that down. But I do notice I've got t and 4t. And remember, that t is the same thing as 1t. So 1t plus 4t is going to give me positive 5t. And I didn't get rid of them, I just combined those terms. Because again, we want to simplify both sides before we start moving things around the equal sign. I'm going to go ahead and take my highlighter out. I'm going to highlight my constants. I'm going to highlight my variables. All right, next up, I want to look at my two variable terms. So I've got negative 2t and 5t. You want to think of which one is smaller, so negative 2 or 5. So negative 2 is going to be smaller than 5. So I'm going to go ahead, and the opposite of this negative term is going to be to add 2t to both sides. I'm going to bring down my constant. I'm going to bring down my 9. And then 5t plus 2t is going to give me 7t. Now if I get my highlighter back out, I've got my constants in yellow. I've got my variables in green. All right, next, I need to get all of my constants on one side of the equal sign and all of my variable terms on the other side. So I've got all of my variable terms are over here on the right. So I'm going to go ahead and start moving my constants to get them all on the left side. So I'm going to move that positive 9 by subtracting it from both sides. And I'm subtracting it because that's really just a positive 9. So 16 minus 9 is going to give me 7. I'm going to bring down 7t. Next, I know that 7t is the same thing as 7 times t. So in order to get t by itself, because remember we're solving for that missing variable, we're going to go ahead and divide both sides by 7. That's going to cancel. I'm going to be left with t equals 7 divided by 7, which is 1. All right, and I'll leave that there for a second for you guys to copy that down. Think of any questions you may have. All right. Oops, didn't mean to do that. All right, we've got 20 minus 6 plus 4k equals 2 minus 2k as our next problem. So again, I want you guys to either draw circles and squares or highlight. So I want you guys to identify your constant terms, and then I want you to identify your variable terms. Again, notice how I'm including those negative signs if I've got a negative term. Make sure you're doing that. All right, I drew my line down the middle. So first thing, I'm going to look at my left side. Do I have anything I can combine on this side? The answer is yes. I can combine that 20 and that negative 6. So all I need to do is just do 20 minus 6, and I'm going to get 14. I didn't get rid of those numbers, I just combined them. So I simplified that left side of the equation, and then I'm going to bring down my 4k because I can't simplify that yet. All right, and then I'm looking at my right side. Is there anything I can simplify or combine? There is not. So I'm going to go ahead and do 2 minus 2k. Just bring it down. I'm going to grab my markers or my highlighters. Make sure you're highlighting your constants in one color and your variable terms in another color. All right. Next, when I'm looking at this, I need to think, okay, which variable term is smaller, 4K or negative 2K? So negative 2 is smaller than 4. So again, to move a negative term to the other side of the equal sign, you can just add the opposite essentially. So a negative and a positive 2K is going to cancel. I'm going to bring down, I've got 14 and then 4K plus 2K gives me 6K. I'm going to bring down that constant of 2. Again, grabbing my markers or highlighters. So I've got 14, 2, and 6K. All right, next, I'm going to go ahead. I know that I need all my variable terms on one side of the equal sign, which I've gotten all of my variable terms on the left side. So I'm going to go ahead and move, add arrow. I'm going to go ahead and move all of my constants to the other side of the equal sign. So 14, this is a positive 14. So I'm going to go ahead and, whoops, didn't mean to do that. I'm going to go ahead and subtract 14 from both sides of the equal sign because this is a positive 14, positive and I'm negative, cancel. I'm going to go ahead and bring down 6K equals, then I've got 2 minus 14. Hey, Michael.
Hey.
Go ahead and you mute yourself and then ask questions if you have them. I've gone over a few problems already, but we've got a couple more. So just go ahead and try and follow along, and then we'll have some time at the end of class to ask questions. All right?
Yeah.
All right. So I'm bringing down my 6K. Then I've got 2 minus 14. So if I enter that in my calculator, 2 minus 14, I'm going to have negative 12. And finally, I need to get K all by itself. So I'm going to go ahead. I know that 6K is the same thing as 6 times K. So to undo that multiplication, I'm going to divide both sides by 6. That's going to cancel. I'm going to be left with K equals negative 12 divided by 6 gives me negative 2. All right, I'll leave this up there for just a second so you guys can copy it down. And Michael, all of the lessons are on YouTube, and I post them to Google Classroom. So anything that you've missed, you can just go back and watch later. Okay, so you don't need to worry about missing a little bit.
All right.
All right. So this is actually not a combining problem. This is a variable on both sides type of problem. So I'm going to move this. So go ahead and get this one written down. We've got 9e minus 7 equals 7e minus 11. So again, when you see a problem like this, I want you to go ahead and take either squares and triangles or 2 different colored markers, and I want you to identify those constant versus variable terms. So I've got 9e and 7e. Those are my variable terms because they have the letter in them. So, or the variable. So those are my variable terms. I'm going to go ahead and take my other color. I'm going to identify my constants. So I've got negative 7 and negative 11. Remember to notice those negative signs when they're in front because when we've got, if we read this straight across, it's 9e minus 7 equals 7e minus 11. But if we're looking at terms separately, that's 9e negative 7, 7e negative 11. So again, we're looking at stuff as terms, not all together anymore. So I'm going to go ahead and draw my line down the middle to make sure that we remember to do each step on both sides. So I'm going to go ahead and grab my other colored pen. So once you get to this step where you've got a constant and a variable on either side of the equal sign, you can go ahead and start moving stuff around the equal sign. I want to look at which variable term is smaller, 9e or 7e. 7e is going to be smaller than 9e because 7 is smaller than 9. So because this is a positive term, that's a positive 7e, I can move that to the other side by subtracting 7e from both sides. So 9e minus 7e is going to give me 2e. And again, you can enter that in your calculator. 9 minus 7 equals 2. And then I'm going to go ahead and bring down my constant, -7, because I haven't done anything with that yet. That canceled over there, so I'm just left with -11 on this side. Now I'm going to go ahead and grab my markers or my highlighters again, or you can do circles and squares, whatever works for you. I'm going to highlight my variable term. I'm going to highlight my constants, so those numbers that don't have variables. And my end goal is to have all variables on one side, all constants on the other side. So I've got 2e, I've got all my variable terms over here. I've got constants on either side of the equal sign. So I need to move this -7 to the right. Because again, I want all my yellows on one side, all my greens on the other side. So to move a negative term, so to move that -7, I can just go ahead and add 7 to either side. And that's going to cancel. -7 plus 7 cancels. So then I'm going to move down my 2e. And then I've got -11 plus 7. So in your calculator, go ahead and do -11 plus 7 equals, and you should get -4. All right, we are finally at the point where we've got variables on one side and constants on the other. So once we've reached this point, we can go ahead and solve for our missing variable. So I can do that. I know that 2e is the same thing as 2 times e. So to undo that multiplication between the two, I'm going to go ahead and divide both sides by 2. So 2 divided by 2 cancels. I'm left with e by itself. -4 divided by 2 is going to give me -2. And I'll let you get the rest of that copied down. Let me know if you have any questions about any of this. All right. Do you have any questions, Michael?
No, but I'm gonna look at this over again, like, you know, to understand it more.
All right, hold on. Let me turn you up a little bit. I can't really hear you. 1 second. Can you say that one more time?
I said, no, I don't have any questions, but I'm gonna for sure look it over again, like to, like, you know,
Yeah, make sure
have
you
more
watch these
understanding.
YouTube videos because I go through everything. And so problems like the one you're seeing right here, we've been practicing those Monday and Tuesday. And then
Yeah.
today we're starting to look at stuff where we're combining. So yeah, definitely make sure you're looking it over. And let me know if you need anything because you have a quiz due, I think, on Sunday. So that's going to be over this kind of stuff. So I just want to make sure you guys are understanding it. So that's why I give you guys quizzes. All right, we're going to go ahead and do this last problem today, and then I'll leave it up for questions. So I've got 6c plus 14 equals -5c plus 4 plus 9c. So we've got a lot of stuff going on here. This is where the highlighting or the circling, whatever you want to do, comes in handy. So I'm going to go ahead and identify my variable terms. So I picked one color, I highlighted or circled all of my variable terms. So any term with a C in it, and make sure you're including those negative signs if it's a negative term. Over here, we've got +14 and +4 as my constants. All right, so I've identified everything on both sides. I've identified constant and variables. My next step, so I'm gonna wanna look at each side separately. So if I'm looking on the left side, I've got 6c plus 14. Well, those are two different types of terms and there's no multiple terms. So I don't have anything to combine or simplify on that side. So I'm just gonna bring down 6c plus 14. I didn't do anything yet, I just brought it down. And the reason I brought it down is because I'm noticing on the right side, I have two terms that are the same color. I can combine variable terms so I can simplify some stuff on the right side. I'm gonna go ahead and in your calculator, Michael, if you don't know where the, there's a subtraction, I don't know if you have this, sorry, if you have this calculator or not. If you don't, I can show you how to do it on an iPhone or on like a Casio or something, but there is a button that looks like this and it should be next to your decimal point if you have this calculator. But that's how you enter negative numbers. So I've got -5 plus 9. That's all you have to do. So we're combining those yellow terms. -5 plus 9. And that's going to give me positive 4c because I'm combining variable terms. And I'm crossing them out because I've simplified them. I haven't gotten rid of them. I just simplified them. Next, I'm gonna, there's nothing, I can't combine this 4 with anything on the right side of the equal sign. So I'm just gonna go ahead and bring it down. So plus 4. So I went ahead, I simplified both sides of my equation. So now I can start moving stuff around either side. Again, I'm gonna highlight my variable terms. I'm gonna highlight my constant terms. Next, my next thing I want to look for is my smaller variable term. So I'm looking at 6c and 4c, and I want to think, okay, which one is smaller? 4c, because 4 is smaller than 6. So I'm going to go ahead, and this is a positive 4c. So to get rid of it, to move a positive to the other side, I'm going to go ahead and subtract 4c from both sides, and that's going to cancel. So I've got 6c minus 4c, which should give me 2c. I'm going to bring down my constant. So 14 equals, and then I'm going to bring down my 4. Now I've just got a two-step equation. I'm still going to highlight just so you guys know what I'm talking about. So I've got my variable terms on one side of the equal sign, but I've still got constant terms on either side. So my goal is to get variables on one side, constants on the other side. So I'm going to go ahead and I want to move that 14 over so I can get yellows on one side, greens on the other side of the equal sign. So I'm going to move, I can move that positive 14 or plus 14 by subtracting it from both sides, because again, a positive and a negative cancel. So next I'm going to go ahead and bring down, I've got 2c equals 4 minus 14. So in your calculator, 4 minus 14, you should get -10. All right, so -10. All right, I'm noticing I've got 2c and -10. So I've finally gotten all of my variable terms on the left side, all of my constant terms on the right side. All I have to do now, I need to get c by itself. So I'm trying to solve for that missing variable. So 2c is 2 times c. So to undo that multiplication between the coefficient and the variable, I'm going to go ahead and divide both sides by 2. So 2 divided by 2 cancels. I'm left with c equals, and then you can go ahead and enter -10 divided by 2. And that's going to give you -5. All right, are there any questions about this one where I got any numbers? I know it's a lot because we're working on multi-step equations. So it's really important to stay organized, but do you have any questions about where I got a number, what step I did, why I did a step, anything like that?
No. Yeah, no.
No questions right now?
Yeah, no, no.
Okay, sorry, that's the obnoxious bell. All right, I'm gonna stop recording.